Hi everyone, Susan Storm here with my amazing husband, Daniel Storm. And we are more than anything hoping that our live stream actually works this week after last week's Bumble. So if you happen to be online and viewing this, be sure to drop a message in the chat. Let us know you're here. Let us know your personality type preferences and if you have any questions. As always, this is something we want you to be a part of. We want this to be a community building experience. So while I am talking, I just want, Daniel, can you just double check if possible that the stream is going through okay, that we're not crashed out like we were last week?
Nope. I see it live on YouTube.
Awesome. So, like I said, if you're here, drop us your name or your type preferences. Let us know you're here. We want to create a really connected type community, a place where people can share some of their insights, their questions, their struggles, and get one-on-one connection with other people who love personality as much as we do. Glad to have you here, Harry, and Lightbearers Library. Glad to have you here for a third week. Thank you so much. If you are part of this, and we want to see you here as many weeks as you can be here, it's a great chance to all get to know each other as we talk about this. So today's subject is talking about how the personality types show they care. And I love this topic because so many times we misinterpret people who show they care in a different way than we show we care. Or we have this idea that there's only one right way to show that you care. And that idea is emphasized in Hallmark movies and mainstream media by different cultural expectations. And there's so many things like that that influence the way that we think we're supposed to show people we care. Some people just feel like they're bad at showing other people they care. Some people think they're the best at showing other people they care. But there's lots of misunderstandings that happen in relationships because one person is showing they care in a way that's totally different from the way another person would show they care. And I know some work has been done on this with the 5 love languages and things like that, but I also think personality type has a huge part to play in this. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Thank you so much, Castor, for being here. I'm glad you're here. Great to have 2 INTPs in the chat. So there was actually an experience today that Daniel had at the local Lowe's, and it kind of showed him some of the ways that an ESTP shows they care in a more casual way. And I thought we could kind of lead in with that story. Daniel, do you want to go ahead and tell us about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I was getting some drywall today, and they had big stacks of it. It was probably up about at my head level, about 6 feet up. And you get 2 sheets of drywall together. They're 4 foot wide, 8 feet long, and about a ½ inch thick. So I've got a whole inch of drywall that I'm trying to pull down and put into my upright kind of lumber cart. And I look over down the aisle as I'm like kind of struggling, getting it down. I mean, I can get it, I can carry it, but it's kind of awkward. And I look down the aisle, and there's a guy leaning against a different stack, just like this, like he's waiting on something, doing nothing. Not an employee, but just another customer there. He's just sitting there like this, kind of watching me do this and not saying anything, just looks completely bored and miserable and just watching the whole time. I'm like, all right, whatever, something else on his mind, I guess. But if it'd been me, I'd at least go over and be like, hey, you need a hand, how much you trying to load up or something, like help them. It takes 10 minutes when you got 2 people. So, but not a big deal. I get it all down. I get it loaded. I go and check out, and I go out, and I'm loading it into the back of a big van. So I have to go through the back door, and it's kind of awkward because I've got to get just the end of the drywall down into the edge of the van and then go around the other end, lift it up, slide it in. Well, somebody else comes walking by, sees me, laughs, and is like, looks like you got your hands full, don't you? And keeps walking instead of being like, oh, hey, can I help you throw that in there? And nothing like that. And just like goes. So again, I was kind of like, no, not going to stop and help. Okay. All right. That's fine. Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of confusing to me because if it'd been me, I know I would have at least asked or checked to see if they needed help or anything like that. I've done that numerous times. And I've got a lot of friends from my time in the military that are also STP types like me. And I've had multiple experiences with them where if somebody needed a hand, you can kind of see in passing, like you would just stop and offer and be like, hey, let me help you. So I definitely feel like, for me, showing how I care in one way would be to like have stopped and helped. And it felt like, maybe the guy that passed by and said, hey, it looks like you got your hands full, is thinking like a smile and a funny comment. Maybe that's just an uplifting like way to show you're like, you care and I'm seen or something, I don't know. But anyway, so that was just kind of like, it just threw me off a little bit. But yeah, so that was my experience today.
Yeah, I think that for ESTPs, hands-on, seeing someone with a hands-on need and just jumping right into action is one of the big ways they show they care. And sometimes in the world, you get people who are like, just don't think that way. And so we're going to get into that in some of our presentation, just talking about the way all the different types show they care. We're going to try to keep it around an hour 15. We'll see. It'll probably get closer to 2 hours if it's anything like our last couple of sessions, but it's so much fun chatting with you guys and getting through this and just highlighting each of the things we love about the types. And this one's a little more positive. Our last streams were like childhood struggles and fears, so now we're actually taking a more positive look at the types. So let's start by talking about where our information is coming from. So I believe that when people are showing care and support to others, often what you're seeing is their dominant or auxiliary function at play. So the hero function, that's your dominant function. That's the function that really takes charge when it sees a problem. It's the part of you that like feels really confident with taking the lead, with knowing what to do, with being the leader. That was repetitive. And then your auxiliary function, another word for that is your parent function. And that's the way that you tend to show care and support to yourself and others. So if you don't know, like I always say, if you don't know about cognitive functions, that is completely okay. We're not going to drown you in jargon here. So you should still be able to get something out of this and understand the themes of the ways the different types show they care without having to know what a dominant or auxiliary function is, or what SEFI is, or anything like that. So we're going to start by talking about the NFJs. ENFJs and INFJs specifically. So these types use a process called extroverted feeling. Extroverted feeling is all about connecting with others, sensing the emotional wavelengths around you. It's really good at noticing how people feel and what they might need to be emotionally comfortable. It's really good at forming intimate connections with other people, reading the room, and creating a positive vibe and atmosphere. Introverted intuition, the other function that NFJs use, is very good at seeing ripple effects, making predictions, seeing the deeper meaning behind things. Now, how this can show up in caring for other people is being able to notice those emotional shifts and those nuances that a lot of other people miss. For a lot of people who are around NFJs, you can kind of feel like, get out of my head. How do you know what I'm feeling? It kind of seems like they have a sixth sense for how you're doing emotionally, how comfortable or uncomfortable you are. And sometimes it's a little unsettling for types who keep their emotions a little bit more guarded. I remember I was at this big social gathering once, and I was talking to an INFJ, and I don't know how we were talking about this, but something about how comfortable we both were with sharing our feelings. And I said something like, oh, it's hard for me to share my feelings. I start overthinking it. And she said something to the effect of, you should just be you. Everyone will love you for who you are, or something like that. And she said it in such a caring, compassionate way, like gazing into my soul, that I immediately started crying, which, as you can imagine, as an INTJ, is kind of like some layer of Dante's version of hell. Like I had to escape. I like literally, it was so awful. I got up and just left. But there's something about NFJs. They can have that vibe of like that they see exactly what's going on with you emotionally. And they just know sometimes the right words to say that are going to actually like really touch your soul. And so it's very powerful. They're also really good at easing tension, at creating Self-disclosing so that other people feel comfortable self-disclosing, so that they know how to like make the perfectly timed joke, how to cut the tension and say something that helps people feel a little bit more comfortable sharing about their lives, about their feelings. um, and then there's that introverted intuitive part that often is always looking for other people's potential. What's going on with this person that isn't immediately obvious? What's something about them that I see as being profoundly meaningful? A way that I could motivate them to see their same potential and guide them towards that. Daniel, you have any thoughts? I know we both have some mutual NFJ friends.
Yeah, we do. One of our friends, she actually also does personality type and has a YouTube channel, and you should definitely check her out. Her name's Joyce Mang. She's it's Type Talks, right? That's what she
Yeah.
does. And I've been on several panels for her as an ESTP, and one of them that kind of sticks out in my mind is it was all ESTPs, which honestly was a little chaotic, as would be expected. I think there was like 6 of us that she was trying to like ask questions and get all of this feedback and stuff um, to see, kind of how it all compared between different flavors of ESTPs. And at the end of it, it was just amazing, because I know the whole time she's watching us and analyzing us, and she knows us all and has talked to us all before, and her introverted intuition is just like picking up all these hints and clues and subtext and all of these things that we don't even realize we're putting off. And then at the end of the session, she like thanks everybody and then individually gives this like really warm, affirming, positive feedback specific to that person. Which was like crazy, because it's 6 ESTPs. Like, how different can we really be? Like, it seems like it would, the feedback would be one size fits all, but it was very thoughtful, caring, affirming, considerate, and customized to each of us. And so that's just, I feel like, a great example of how INFJs and ENFJs kind of read the nuance of each person that they come across and notice things about them and want to affirm and support them through that extroverted feeling.
Yeah, 100%. They are they just have this ability to really see the things that you're like, how are they even seeing that? And
Mhm.
it's really powerful. So thank you, NFJs, for all of that empathy. For those words of affirmation tends to be like one of their top love languages. I ran a survey, I think it was 2 years ago, on the Myers-Briggs personality types and their 5 love languages. And I'm pretty sure for ENFJs, their top love language was words of affirmation. For INFJs, their top love languages was quality time, followed by very closely by words of affirmation. So they're really good at knowing those very particular words to say that are just going to make someone feel
Mhm.
seen, someone feel appreciated. So now let's look at the SFJs. So these types also have extroverted feelings. So they're also very attuned to how people feel. They notice what's going to make someone feel comfortable, what's going to make someone feel tense. They're good at reading the room. They're the people who you go to their house and they're like, "Hey, you look a little cold. Do you need me to adjust the thermostat, or do you need me to give you this throw blanket that I have over here?" They always have like comfy things around their house, I notice. And then that's paired up with introverted sensing, which is really good at creating a sense of consistency, a sense of comfort, a sense of many times like a sense of home and hearth. SJ types are also really good at noticing those little details that make you happy. As an example I always use is one time when I was pregnant, I was really craving Fruit Loops, and someone in my family, an SFJ, literally went out to the store and bought like 5 boxes of Fruit Loops. I did not need 5 boxes of Fruit Loops, but they noticed
Everyone,
that.
everyone needs 5 boxes of Fruit Loops.
Yeah, it's just so they tend to notice those little things that you like, and then when you go to visit them, it could be years after that. They'll be like, "Oh, I remembered that your favorite candy was this, so I have this." They notice those little details, those little things that just make you feel comfortable, and they're really good at creating special traditions. Every SFJ I know has very particular holiday traditions, for example, that they lean into for the people they care about. It's like, "Oh, I know that this person always likes the sweet potato casserole this way, or I know this person, we always read this story every Christmas Eve and this brings us all together. So these are all ways that they can show they care. Some of the ways that you might see this, I wrote in this bullet point list: creating cozy, familiar spaces that help people feel safe and grounded. A lot of times when I think of SFJs, I think of home and hearth. A lot of the SFJs I know, they spend a lot of time making sure their homes are just right, making sure their homes feel cozy, like their couches have pillows and blankets, and there's, this, you walk in and there's a candle burning. They notice things that make their homes feel especially homey. They're good at creating those traditions like we just talked about. Doing small little daily gestures that really make you feel like you are appreciated, like they've paid attention to you. They're the types that are good at remembering those little milestones. As an INTJ, I'm someone who I will almost always forget your birthday. Um, this is something I've really had to work on a lot. Even in my relationship with Daniel, I have to work really hard to remember like our anniversary date or Father's Day or anything like that. I literally am terrified because I'm so bad at remembering dates. But SFJs are usually the kinds of people that they have it on their phone calendar, but not only that, they just seem to have it in their memory, these special dates that are important to other people. And so they often commemorate those dates and those special moments by creating these special rituals, special traditions. I have an SFJ aunt who still sends me $20 every single birthday, as an example. So they're pretty special people. Daniel, you have a lot of SFJs in your life. You have a ISFJ sister, an ESFJ mom, and then we have an ISFJ son. Any quick
Yes.
thoughts before we move on to the next set of types?
Yeah, no, I just know, being inundated with SFJs in my life as I am, that you're exactly right. Like they're really good at trying to create atmosphere. That's actually, for a while, our son's, it seemed like it was one of his favorite words, is he's like, I need the right atmosphere. I want a cozy atmosphere. He loves, like, if it's raining outside and he can snuggle up with a blanket and a book, and it just seems cozy, and or if there's a fire in the fireplace, like the atmosphere and the warmth and all of that, is something that, I mean, at his age he can't create it necessarily for other people, but my mom, that would be the kind of thing that she would do, or she would notice, and try to set up. I remember every year, I mean, I grew up further north in Nebraska, so every year when we had the first snow, it was like, okay, you kids are going to go play in the snow. I will make some hot chocolate so you can have that when you come in. And that was just kind of that ritualistic tradition of the first snow that we did every year. That was, you felt like it was just a special occasion, and she had made it that way. And that was how she showed she cared. So I just think, those are a couple of good examples, I think.
Absolutely. I think SFJs bring those like really special rituals to life
Mhm.
in a way that I always think, oh, that'd be really fun to be good at that. And then I write down some ideas and don't actually do them. All right, so now we're going to look at the NFPs. I know we have at least one INFP here. Light Bearers Library is an INFP. Again, you should definitely check out her YouTube channel. But ENFPs and INFPs, these are extroverted, intuitive types. They see possibilities everywhere. They're really good at seeing connections between things that to other people seem totally unrelated. And one of the best ways that they show they care, I'm actually going to jump over to this next screen because I feel like I keep repeating things. One of the best ways they show other people care and support is by bringing possibilities and new ideas and novel approaches to other people. Sometimes when you're having a hard day, they're going to look at a manual or they're going to start troubleshooting and giving you logical advice. An ENFP is going to say, hey, I know you've tried all these other things, but how about we look at this totally new revolutionary idea? They're also really good at spotting people's potential in the same way that NFJs are. And F types in general are really good at seeing what people are capable of and being inspired by people and encouraging them to go after a higher calling. Personal growth tends to be really important to all the NF types, and this is true for ENFPs and INFPs as well. They tend to see not just what people are, but what they could be. And so one of the ways that they show they care is by trying to motivate you to be all that you can be, to help you see that you can really make your dreams a reality. As an example, I think Walt Disney was an ENFP. And he was somebody who was always talking about the power of imagination, the power of your dreams. And so one of the ways he showed the world that he cared was by instilling that message into literally everything he created. Now, he probably wasn't a perfect person, but he gives us a great example of the ENFP and the INFP way of showing someone care and support. It's, hey, don't give up. Don't get frustrated by the setbacks you're facing in the moment, by the struggles you're facing now. Believe that there's more possible, that you can create something new. And Daniel and I have a mutual friend named Sarah, who is an ENFP, and she's amazing at seeing what someone's good at and being like, oh my gosh, you should do this with some cool business idea, or you could really like change the world with this amazing talent that you have. And they just, at their best, NFPs can really make you feel like, wow, I'm like $1,000,000 here. I'm like, I really, the world is my oyster and I can do anything I set my mind to. And I think that's something that they're just amazing at. But that's the extroverted intuitive part. There's also that introverted feeling part. One thing that I really love about NFPs is that they're good at creating space for you to be your authentic self. It's less about we need to have a harmonious atmosphere where everyone's feeling really positive. If you're feeling down in the dumps, they want you to be able to express that. They often are very good listeners. There's an INFP in our lives that if I'm going through something and I'm trying to cover it up by being like, you know what, it's okay, it's not a big deal. She's like, no, just tell me what's going on. And we'll listen for literally like hours. I mean, I don't talk for hours, but she would listen for that long. In fact, Dario Nardi, who wrote the book Neuroscience of Personality, said that INFPs and ISFPs are the consummate listeners. Unlike other types who tend to think out responses while someone's talking, these types tend to really quiet their minds and really actively listen to someone. So one thing that you'll find, especially with these INFP types, is that they are very good listeners. They really pay attention to not just the words you're saying, but the emotion underneath the words. And it's really important to them that they're not forcing you to feel any particular way. They don't want to change your feelings. They just want to give you space to feel your authentic feelings and then kind of come home to yourself in the process. And I see a comment here from Vicky. She says, yes, I do that, enabling others, but also deep listening, accepting others, warts and all. And I think that's one of the introverted feelings' greatest strengths, is seeing people and wanting to see, and wanting not only to see them warts and all and give them space to show that, but even appreciating the warts, being like, you know what, those warts are kind of cool. You don't have skin like everybody else. You have some pretty cool, interesting looking bumps there. I mean, like, seriously, they enjoy people's quirks. And then we've got ESFPs and ISFPs. I do see a comment here from Jack from World Socionic Society. He said, I'd argue that forcing cheer is exactly what Walt Disney was about in creating the happiest place on earth. And you probably have a point there, Jack. I think Walt Disney did want to create a very optimistic, cheerful world of possibility when he created Walt Disney World. And I think part of that is his extroverted intuition, just wanting people to believe in the power of their dreams and imagination and creating a place where you really do feel like anything is possible. All right, so now we are on to, and by the way, we do really love the thoughts and questions. So if you're watching and you've been hesitant or a little shy to say anything, feel free to jump on and give your thoughts and opinions. We are really happy to hear from all of you. Like I said, this isn't just me monologuing or Daniel monologuing. We want to create a more connected community in the type community, a place where people can come and really feel heard. So that said, ESFPs and ISFPs, two of my favorite types. I mean, I hate to say I have so many favorite types, but I really like feeling perceiver types. So as extroverted sensing types, these types do tend to show people care and support by giving them a good time, by making life fun, by showing a positive experience, by helping people be present in the moment and see the opportunity and the beauty that's there right now. And then pair that with introverted feeling. And just like with the NFPs, SFPs at their best are really good at creating a safe space for you to express your true feelings. And they don't really have much patience for phoniness or hidden agendas or anything like that. They're really good at just making you feel free to be your individual, quirky, misfit self. A lot of the I have a good friend who's an ESFP, and she will say the most preposterous things in the middle of a social situation, like things that most people would be like, oh, I would never say that. But what that does is it quickly sorts out the kind of people who would like someone like her and the people who wouldn't. So she does it's very efficient. I mean, I think her TE, her extroverted thinking, is helping her out a little bit because it helps sift out the kind of people who are a little too highfalutin, for lack of a better word, to hang out with someone like her who would be so sort of outspoken about her experiences and her beliefs and things like that. But it also, on top of that, creates space for other people to feel like they can be 100% themselves with her. And it's also creates really entertaining conversations. I have never been bored in a conversation with an SFP, I don't think. So here's some ways that might show up. It might show up by jumping in and helping right away. The situation that Daniel talked about this morning at the Lowe's, where he's like trying to, I don't know, fit a 8 by 4 foot drywall into the back of a van. Like if SPs see that someone is in need of practical assistance, they generally tend to jump right in and help. In fact, it would feel weird not to do that. They tend to express love through action. That means keeping a cool head in a crisis, helping out in a crisis. Maybe it's giving you a fun experience. Maybe it's physical affection. A lot of the SFPs I know are good at finding an adventure in the most unexpected situations, finding a way to make it more exciting, especially if it's a spontaneous, unexpected adventure. Sometimes for us INJs or other J types, it can be a little unsettling sometimes because it might be like, oh, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. Hey, let's go on a road trip to, out west or something like that. And you're like, oh my gosh, that takes a lot of thought. But they're kind of just up for all that excitement. And that's one of the ways that they show they care. They're good at remembering the sensory details about other people. And like I said here, the scents, the songs, the colors that make them happy. They try to, and similarly to how SJs do, they try to remember those details and revisit them for the people that they care about. We often put the word memory, we associate that with introverted sensing or the SJ types, but SPs also tend to have a pretty good memory for the details that light people up and make people happy and excite them. And if they care about you, they'll probably be paying attention to those sensory details. Another way they show love and care is by protecting your individuality and making sure you feel like you have a safe space to show that. So if an SFP sees someone being bullied for a individual quirk they have, often an SFP is going to be really outspoken in defense of that person. They don't like people being mistreated because of things that other people find quirky or against the status quo in some way. They tend to like the misfits and the weirdos. And I would say that's true for NFPs as well. All right. So also I see Cassandra, she's an INFJ. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad you're here. And I hope you come back again next week as well. Now we are on to the ENTPs and INTPs. So these types are extroverted and intuitive. So kind of like we were talking about with ENFPs and INFPs, they show care by bringing possibility to your life, by making you feel like everything's limitless. Like there are, when you're feeling trapped or you're feeling stifled, uninspired, depressed, they're the people who are going to show you these windows of opportunity that you might never have seen otherwise. And I think I need to take a breath and have a drink of water. Daniel, you have a friend who is an ENTP. Your best friend is an ENTP.
Yeah,
you want to talk
absolutely.
a little bit about how he shows he cares?
Yeah, for sure. So she said it's my best friend, in which he is. I've known him for about 40 years now, which is a crazy long time. And we know each other incredibly well through all our highs and lows in life. And he is one friend that if I have specifically, he works with computers and technology a lot. And that is just his area of expertise. So if I have something I can't figure out, or just a curiosity about a computer build or how something is working and all of that, all I have to do is send him a message, send him a text, and be like, "Hey, I was thinking about this thing," and just send him a quick message. And the next thing I know, he's like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I found this and this and this, and you could probably do it with this, and these would be the steps to do it." And just like lays it out, but is excited by the idea, the new possibility, but wants to help by he loves to do the research and come up with the answer of how specifically, like, whatever system or whatever I'm trying to figure out and fix or work on would operate and how to make it work. And I've seen him go out of his way many times to offer that kind of a help. At his church, he's like, the audio and video system was a mess. So he like went in there and cleans it all up and streamlines it and makes it work like 10 times better with half the equipment, kind of a thing. Like he's just really got an eye and a mind and a knack for that. And that's just how he shows, particularly with computers. But for him, that's just how he helps is to go in there and do it himself.
Yeah, absolutely. He's also hilarious. He can be really funny.
Very
He can
funny.
cheer you up just by making a joke. One thing I've found that's really common with NTPs is they can find the quirky humor in any situation and can sometimes just diffuse tension or brighten up your day by saying something absolutely absurd just to slice through that tension. I know we have an ENTP here right now, Jack Oliver Aaron. I'm calling him out, World Socionics. And we've actually had some conversations where I think he's shown the introverted thinking way of caring, which many times introverted thinking, I find with introverted thinking types, they show they care by helping to clarify information for you. So if you're not sure how a system works, they are more than happy to explain it to you in a way that's very clear and very precise. It's not just in general terms, but they're explaining it to you like all the nuts and bolts and basic principles in a way that is very clear, in a way that can make sense. And I have gotten into these conversations with Jack about socionics, which is another form of typology. It's similar to Myers-Briggs, but it's kind of a Russian interpretation of it. So he's been kind of explaining how that works and how it might be the same kind of thing as Myers-Briggs, but it's built different. So he's been explaining that to me. Sometimes introverted thinking can look like correcting misinformation or what's seen as misinformation too. So if a thinking perceiving type cares about you, they might correct you if they feel like you're using misinformation. They might say, "Hey, actually, here's a clearer way to understand it. Here's a more precise way to understand your thinking." Or they might point out if there's an inconsistency between one thing you're saying and another thing. And so sometimes people interpret that as being arrogant, or they interpret it as being kind of insensitive. But introverted thinking is that second function for ENTPs, and it's the hero function for INTPs. So generally, when they're doing that, a lot of times it's coming from a place of genuine care. They're trying to connect with you. So in the same way that feeling judging types try to connect with someone by sharing emotions, by sharing their feelings, by getting some kind of rapport going, thinking perceiving types tend to try to connect with you by swapping information, by clarifying data. So it may not feel like, "Oh, wow, I feel so loved and cared about. This person's giving me data," right? It might not seem like the stereotypical way that someone shows they care. But I think it's really important to shine a spotlight on that because it genuinely is a way that they show they care many times. And I think of all the types, the thinking perceiving types are often the most misunderstood when it comes to how they show they care. Instead of getting a good, warm, positive reaction, they tend to get, "Oh my gosh, you don't know everything. Why are you trying to tell me this?" Like something like that. Or if someone comes to them and they're having a hard day, a thinking perceiver might be like, "Okay, let's like break apart the problem and try to find what went wrong and give you a solution." And perhaps the other person just wanted a hug or empathy. And then they see that troubleshooting as being arrogant rather than being a sign of sensitivity or kindness. So I see a comment here from Kale says, I think we NTPs do a similar thing to the NFPs, but in systems rather than people, where we provide accuracy, potential, and leverage for others. How can we clean up and iterate on something? Yeah, I think that I think introverted thinking and introverted feeling, I think, are similar. They're introverted feeling is looking for like accuracy of emotional expression and accuracy of intent and like what are your values? What do you really believe in deep in your core that maybe you're not really sharing with everyone? And I feel like introverted thinking, it's like, no, what I don't really care about like these vague general assumptions. I want to understand like the core principles of how something works. And when they see people laboring, under misapprehensions or things like that, they're like, oh, let me clean up your thinking. Let me like, there's this little like break in your knowledge, and I can connect it here. Any thoughts that you have, Daniel? You're also a thinking perceiver, but you spend a lot of time talking to your ENTP friend, and we have a lot. We have some other NTPs in our lives. Any thoughts on how introverted thinking can like the I guess the motivation behind how it tries to show care through introverted thinking?
Yeah, I think everything you've said obviously is very, very accurate as far as like from a TI perspective, introverted thinking, but they definitely, I don't think, come at this with any intent to be showing off or arrogant. It really is information to be helpful and to clarify and to remove any kind of ambiguity or doubt about a system or information or something that way. Because it makes, for me anyway, as an ESTP, I look at it as I am now freeing you up to operate in a more efficient and effective manner because you know exactly what the information is, what the truth is, what the core, most accurate piece of information is that you were maybe a little dubious about. So, yeah. And I'm sure in people's times of need, that accurate information doesn't feel the most assuring and warmth giving, but it is one of those ways of trying to help and trying to put your skills and your ability and your knowledge to use to other people.
So wait, you're saying that thinking perceivers never clarify information out of a sense of arrogance, right?
I didn't say they never do. Okay, let's not.
Whoa.
No, I didn't say they never do. I'm just saying that isn't typically
it's not
how
always
they're
what's going on.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I just had to say that because you're an ESTP and I've heard stories. I know that's anyway. So I did have a comment here from VS. My son is an INTP and has learned to be very warm and patient when helping others with technical matters. Is that the doorway for developing his fourth function? And I would say that is, when you have introverted thinking working alongside extroverted feeling, that's what happens is they can clarify information and they can help people with technical matters, but they can do it with kindness and with warmth, and they can generally understand, oh, I'm not going to hit people over the head with this like a sledgehammer, but I'm going to put a little bit of like honey. What's that? You can catch more flies with honey than vinegar or whatever.
Yep.
Like they learn how to add a little honey to what they're saying to make it seem a little bit more maybe patient and gentle. And then there's a comment here from Jack who says, introverted thinking is consolidative thinking. It's trying to repair a shared understanding of the world. Unlike extroverted thinking, which is differentiative and so doesn't care about divergence if it works. And another sign of introverted thinking, which is showing up here, is very specific word usage: consolidative, differentiative, divergence, things like that. And when I'm on the spot having a live stream, I cannot, like, for the life of me, I'm like, yes, that makes sense. I will understand what you said as soon as I get off this call. I'm like, okay, consolidative, divergence, and I suddenly feel stupid. So, yes, I'm sure what you said makes sense, Jack. I will think about it and then get back to you on it. Anyway, he's super smart. He's probably way smarter than me about type. Go check out his YouTube channel at World Socionic Society, because he's actually like the most, in my opinion, the most helpful person when it comes to understanding socionics. All right, so then next we have ESTPs and ISTPs. And again, extroverted sensing types. These are the types that show care through action, through practicality, by noticing what other people miss and what they need in the moment. These are the people you want when your car breaks down on the side of the road and you're like, I don't know what to do and I'm panicking and I need someone who can think fast. Extroverted sensing types are the people that you need during those situations. They think well in a crisis. In fact, they kind of like a crisis. Wouldn't you say that's true, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a waste of knowledge and ability to not get to use it, right? And so it's exciting. There's an exhilaration. There's a change. There's a shift from the norm to something interesting, right? Because like we go through our day-to-day lives and everything operates under the same societal rules and methodologies that are very tried and true and established by censor judges, which is fantastic because it does keep the world running and ordered and the way you would expect it to. But it starts feeling a bit like Groundhog's Day, right? To STPs. So definitely something like this coming out of left field at you, and you get to do something about it. Like that's, I kind of feel bad saying like it's always exciting because I was just thinking about our trip this summer. You were talking about a wheel breaking down on the side of the road,
Oh
and
no, I know
we
where this is
had
going.
we were pulling a trailer behind our van and got a flat tire. And I was like, okay, it's not a big deal. I got out, I put on the spare tire. We keep going. We get another flat tire. I don't have another spare for it. And it's Sunday, so half the places are closed. Finally figure out and get a tire replaced for it. Get back to my trailer, and there's just a mass of wire that has been wound around my axle. And I don't have the tools. Like I don't have anything to cut it with. I don't have pliers with me. And so I don't know, I probably had to spend an hour trying to get that wire unwound and finally got it off. But it was not exciting. I was not happy. It was not fun. So I take that, that whole idea of, oh yes, please let there be an emergency or something out of the ordinary to be exciting. It's not
Yeah,
always not
not
always in
like
the
being
fun
on
way.
the side of the road in Florida in July with fire ants biting up your legs trying to
Yeah,
untangle copper wire. I
yeah,
think that's fair. I don't think
yeah.
every SE is just jumping with joy when they encounter a situation like that.
I,
But in general, I would say that,
yeah.
extroverted sensing types like it when life kind of shakes things up a little bit. And so you have some examples of that I know are not quite as tedious and hellish as that experience, but they are great people. When if they care about you, they will show up for you in your crisis. So like I can tell you right now, if Daniel cares about someone and one of his friends were to call him and say, hey, I'm stuck on off a Florida highway, it's 120 degrees and there's fire ants everywhere and I don't know what to do, he would go through all that for someone he cared about. So they will jump into action. They will. I kind of like to be those superheroes, which is probably why there's so many ESTPs and superhero movies who show up and just save the day. And then they've got introverted thinking, similarly to the NTPs we just talked about. So clarifying data and information. However, because it's paired with extroverted sensing, it tends to be less theoretical than what you get with NTPs. NTPs really like clarifying concepts and like systems that have to do with, like, for example, Myers-Briggs typology, really good at clarifying how the cognitive functions work in really precise definitions. STPs, it often shows up in a more, like, how would I want to say, like, so often in a mechanical way with you, and with like you were had a lot of STP friends in the military, it tends to show
Mhm.
up in, you know, construction and
Mhm.
house projects and or figuring out how to build a computer. There tends to be a very tangible um want to say tangible output for their introverted thinking. It's not just, oh, I really want to understand this concept in psychology. It's often, oh, I want to understand how I can rework, I don't know, the engine of my car to make it go faster, which is probably like, I'm not probably not even explaining that properly. But they do like to, they're often the people that end up being family tech support or family handymen, whether they're men or women, who just come in and save their inept families from figuring out how to fix their computer or their car or the plumbing under their sink or whatever it is. Now, not all STPs are mechanical. I do have some female STPs. I know that sounds bad. It sounds like females aren't mechanical. They definitely can be. But there are a few female STPs I know who are like, oh my gosh, we're not all mechanics and plumbers. And, they show their hands-on, abilities through baking. For example, one of them has a bakery and she approaches baking like a science and has all these really complex types of bread that she makes and understands everything about about the chemistry behind how the bread rises the right way or how to get a sourdough started just the right way. So anyway, how these types show they care. Again, it's oftentimes showing up and offering hands-on practical assistance right in the moment that you need it. These types are also good at lightening the mood, using humor to kind of diffuse tension or frustration or overwhelm. They're often good at offering logical advice, but don't expect them to sugarcoat that advice. If they really care about you, they're probably just going to give it to you straight because they don't want to waste your time. STPs tend to be pretty concise with their words and don't really like beating around the bush or anything like that. They also want to create really exciting experiences with you. Experiencing is so important to extroverted sensing. Like really feeling like you are seizing the day, you're living in the moment, you're being fully present, you're doing something that's going to make your heart rate increase. You're going to feel exhilarated. So that could be, wow, my brain just went away. What are ways that someone feel like, I don't know. Tell me, Daniel, you're an ESTP. What are some ways that you would try to show someone a positive experience as a way to show that you care?
I mean, it would be, to me, it would be doing fun things. I mean, you're absolutely right. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I think a lot of STPs are. So, I mean, like, I don't know, like jumping off a bridge into a river or just randomly, I don't know. I like driving fast, but so something like that. It's exciting to me. It's fun. Or I don't know, but
I don't know why my brain just like, this is the problem with me in live streams, is if I'm talking for so long, my brain will literally just go blank after a little while. I'm like, I can't think of anything. Like I couldn't even tell you like, what's my middle name? I think from the SE types that I know, it's like, hey, let's go out. This would be an ESFP, like, let's go out dancing. ESTP, it's like, let's give each other like really great massages. That's more of an intimate relationship, but it could be driving, it could be going out and going on adventure, going on a spontaneous trip or something like that. But generally speaking, they just want your experience to be really thrilling. So that's definitely one of the ways they show they care. Trying to explain how things work when you're confused. And sometimes you don't want them to explain how it works, you just want them to fix it. That's kind of the curse of like TJ TP relationships. It'll be like, oh my gosh, this is this frustrating technical issue I don't know how to fix. And then they kind of explain, well, here's what went wrong and here's all the, nuts and bolts and reasons why it didn't work. And often TJs are kind of jerks about this. And I will say this for myself, like, okay, I don't care. I just want it to work. I don't really care about understanding how it works. But that's something that introverted thinking does so well, is it does explain how it works. And as much as TJs like me can be really jerky about the whole thing, it's important for us to understand that and make space for it as well. All right, so let's go to the ENTJs and INTJs. I'm pretty sure we have an ENTJ here in the chat. So extroverted thinking, a little bit different from how introverted thinking operates. It's more about getting something done. It's less about understanding all the nitty-gritty components of how something works and this precise logic behind it. And it's more interested in getting something accomplished with what it knows. So making things efficient, getting things organized to achieve a particular goal. These are people, when they show they care, it's often through managing life's problems for you, by organizing, by planning, by getting things done. And then you're pairing that with introverted intuition, which is looking behind the scenes, looking for patterns, implications, looking for potential. And so these types when something's going wrong, they're going to look for some kind of strategy or logistical way to manage the situation. They may show up in a crisis really well too, but it's usually a little bit different from how extroverted sensing types show up in a crisis. For extroverted thinking types like me, it's more like, okay, give me the details of what's going on, and then just leave me with it, and I will solve it. I will figure out what we need to do. And then, but it may not be as good in a situation where, say, oh, I know, I just crashed, my car's busted, I don't know what to do, I think I'm gonna die. Well, that's a little bit, for an INTJ, perhaps a little bit more challenging, because that requires a little bit more extroverted sensing. An ENTJ might be a little bit better equipped to handle that. But extroverted thinking is really good at organizing all the resources in a given situation and figuring out what to put where to make sure that the crisis or the problem is handled in a expedient way. Extroverted thinking cares a lot about getting it done and getting it done fast. And especially for ENTJs, it's like, let me get to this goalpost as quickly as possible. I don't want to waste time getting caught in the weeds. I just want to get there now. And it usually sees the fastest possible route to get there. If a TJ type really cares about, an ENTJ or an INTJ really cares about you, they're probably going to give you really direct, honest feedback. They're probably not going to beat around the bush. They don't feel like, for example, criticism. An NTJ type would find sandwiching criticism with praise to be kind of disingenuous and insulting. So if an NTJ was going up to you and like, hey, you've been doing such a great job at work, I just so appreciate what you're doing. Okay, you really messed up here, but thank you so much. You're doing so great. That would be like, that would feel like so insulting and condescending to them to do that. So if an NTJ cares about you, they might seem like kind of brusque and even rude in how directly they give criticism, but to them, that's actually a sign of respect, because they're like, I'm not wasting your time. I'm being really honest with you. Don't you appreciate that? And then usually people are like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? Why would you say that? Why couldn't you have sandwiched that with some gentleness or something? And so that's one of these ways where thinking types just have a harder time having their genuine care and concern really seen and acknowledged, because to them, adding a lot of fluff to a problem or to criticism feels just like, it feels so uncomfortable and insulting. It would feel like they didn't respect you. To them, that's often how it feels, like it feels disrespectful for them to do that. Because of their introverted intuition, they're generally fairly good at spotting how things will unfold over time. And so they can often spot potential problems before they happen, and then they will work to circumvent those problems. They may not even tell you about it. You'll just be like, oh, I thought this was going to happen, but this problem didn't happen, but they were actually in the background kind of fixing things for you. NTJs care about growing. They're usually very ambitious. They don't really like mediocrity. They tend to be pushing themselves constantly to achieve certain objectives. And if they care about you, they also want to push you to achieve your goals. If they see that you have the potential for something, then they generally are going to try to check in with you. How's it going? How are you doing on your path to this goal? And they'll try to give you advice. They'll try to give you insight. They'll try to help you strategically to reach the goals, because they think just as much as they don't want mediocrity, they figure other people don't want that either. And so they tend to try to improve your life by checking in with you. Now, this can feel a little bit frustrating for other people who are like, oh my gosh, get off my case. I don't know. I was talking about this goal 2 weeks ago and now I've moved on to something else. So these are some of the ways they show they care. They care by taking action, by solving problems for you, by giving logical or strategic advice for you. Daniel, you happen to know an INTJ, actually.
I do really well.
Anyway, so this is your chance to tell people how loving and caring I am, actually.
You are, actually. That's the thing. And that is one misconception I would say about thinkers, is that they can't be warm or caring or loving or sweet or whatever, but that they're just all analytical. But that is something that I've seen you do over and over and over as a way of showing you care, is definitely like seeing where there's people are either unhappy, dissatisfied, or aren't able to figure out how to take their next step forward in a goal or anything like that. And you will roadmap that. You'll be like, well, here's a way. And if you didn't like this particular thing on this roadmap, here's a different one that eliminates that and gives you this other option. And you genuinely put a lot of time and consideration of what you know about that person into those things. You try to customize it to their preferences and their needs and their desires and make it all work for the same end goal. Your introverted intuition is reading them and the future that they're trying to get to, and your your extroverted thinking is really trying to help them achieve it as quickly and as easily as possible. And you do that all the time, and it's easy to take it for granted because it's so beneficial. Once you are used to somebody being very direct about it. But no, it's good. But it's super beneficial and helpful. I mean, you and I have done a lot of traveling and trips together, and you're the one that always does the planning, right? Like, you're the one that's always like, okay, here's the optimized route. Here's this. And then, like, as we're traveling, anything that comes up in the moment or needs to be done or decided, like, I tend to take those in the moment decisions. But the roadmaps that you create, and even as things need to change, you're on it and you can figure it out quickly. I hope she is. I hope she is. No, I really hope she is.
I don't like compliments are weird for me. Like, the minute someone starts complimenting me, I'm like, I feel extremely uncomfortable. I'll enjoy this later when I'm by myself.
Yeah, I think this sums it up right here.
Yeah, I did. I think a lot of NT types appreciate compliments genuinely. It's in the moment when it's happening that you just feel like, oh my gosh, this is going on so long. Okay. But later in our own, it's that introverted feeling comes in later. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go with the STJs. And actually, I'm glad because John is here and has ISTJ preferences. I'm glad you're here, John. So again, extroverted thinking is leading the show, or is in the parental role for STJs. So STJs tend to also show care and concern by solving problems, by handling things when they're hard, by managing those logistics in life that often get people weighed down or confused. Whether it comes down to organizing plans, finding efficient ways to make things happen. Extroverted thinking is one of those ways they show they care. Introverted sensing as well. Introverted people who have introverted sensing in their stack, so SJ types, tend to show they care by creating a sense of consistency, a sense of stability, a sense of tradition. Like, what to expect, you can count on them. And that just creates a sense of security for the people that they care about. And it's really meaningful. Here's some of the ways.
You okay?
I don't know. I know I'm fine. It's just like, it's a lot of talking. And literally, my brain starts dying after talking for like a little while. So I'm actually going to let you go over some of these bullet points, because I know Daniel's dad was an ISTJ, and my brother Jack's an ISTJ. So I know you know some of this. So just kind of talk about this for a little bit while I let my brain recalibrate.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so taking charge of practical matters so others don't have to worry about it. Like she said, my dad was an ISTJ, and I remember being probably 4 or 5 and being like, you also have to understand, my dad was like 6'3", this really big guy. And so, like, I remember being 4 or 5 and being nervous to walk up and get a hug from him. And it wasn't that he was ever mean to me ever. It was just, I was just intimidated by him, and he wasn't one of those, like, come up and give you a hug to show he cared. But like, my dad, like, without fail, day in and day out, went and did his job, made sure that the budget was handled, that there was food on the table, that we had clothes and shoes that fitted us, that our education was on course, that all of these little details day in and day out that get monotonous, like, he made sure that all of that stuff was was available and handled and taken care of. And as I got older, I came to appreciate that more and more and more, that if we had a need, he would find a way. If he needed to work more hours or just change the budget around a little bit to make things work, he would make sure that the needs were taken care of no matter what. And that's like an amazing thing about STJs is that ability to be consistent and to create that sense of security, to show up on time every time, to keep their word no matter how difficult it might be. If they make a promise, you can count on it. They're one of those peoples that you can count on. And he definitely, like, I remember the house that I grew up in. It was an older house, but my dad had worked on it all the time in his spare time on weekends and things to fix it and to keep our vehicles running, and all of these things that needed to be done to keep our day-to-day life running smoothly. He handled and made sure they were taken care of all the time.
Yeah, I think that ISTJs generally are pretty private about their feelings. You may not know. They're not going to be like effusively saying, "Oh my gosh, I love you," and the sunlight made me think of your smile. I mean, maybe if they have a really close relationship with you, you might see little bits of that if they're really comfortable or they've had a few drinks. But like, to me as an INTJ, I feel like their love and their feelings are like really obvious. But that's because I also have introverted feeling third. So even if they don't say a lot of their feelings, you just can sense it in the way that they, particularly ISTJs, the way that they look at the people around them, the way they notice everything, the way they quietly take in the people they care about, and are patient in explaining things to them, the way they just provide this gentle, steady presence. My grandfather was an ISTJ, is one of my favorite people in the whole world. Named my son after him, and he would just have this look. I don't know how to explain this, because I've seen this with lots of ISTJs and even ESTJs as they get older. They have this look when they're watching the people they care about. It's like they're not going to say anything. There's not going to be words, but you can just see the love in their eyes. But if you were to say, like, "Hey, tell me how much you feel for me," or whatever, they'd be like, "This is really awkward." It's like you're asking to look at my dirty socks or something like that. And so it feels really strange for them, but you can see it in the way that they show practical support, the loyalty to the people they care about, the kind of stability they try to provide for the people they care about. They're often like these beacons of security when life feels really chaotic. They're people you can count on. They'll be there when they say they're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. What else do I have in the bullet points for those moments where my brain stops working? Creating a sense of structure in your life. Because they're STs, they generally are interested in like the mechanical aspects of life as well, how things work, fixing things. I found that STJs are often really good if you're like, "I don't know this problem. How do I fix it?" Even if they don't know how to fix it, they will research how to fix it for you. And then we have a comment here from Kate. She says, "My ESTJ mom was the best mom." ESTJs are amazing in so many ways. I think they get a really bad rap in the type community. They will show they care by taking charge of any situation that seems chaotic. If your life is in chaos, they're going to be like, "Here's what you need to do. I have the answers for you." And while that can seem very, like, to some types, it can seem a little overbearing, they really do want to simplify your life. They want to streamline things in your life. They're going to show that love through action. World Socionics, Jack Oliver Aaron says, "Question: if the NTPs like to structure ideas, whilst NTJs are more pragmatic, i.e., does it achieve the goal or not? Why do the STJs create structure in reality?" Why do they create structure in reality? I mean, I believe that STJs, they immediately look around them and see when there's inefficiencies in the system. Although I do think NTJs do that a lot too. For example, STJs are the kinds of people, if your kitchen is badly organized, like if the stuff you need by the sink is over by the stove, they're going to be like, "Why is this arranged this way? I will rearrange it for you." They just see what makes sense and what resources need to be where at what time. so that you can, something that would have taken maybe 15 minutes to do, you can now do in 5. But I don't know if that's answering your question about why they create structure in reality. I think it's just satisfying to STJs, although like I said, I think that's satisfying for NTJs as well. Though NTJs can sometimes apply that structure to concepts. Like for me as an NTJ, I like taking this whole mess of like different theories about personality and structuring it into these slides, for example. This is one of my ways of structuring information. Some people, when they're explaining type, they're going to have, a whole bunch of my personal experiences with these types. For me, I just would rather write these little bullet points and be like, okay, Daniel, tell a story about this. So that's my way. I like to structure information in a very like bullet point kind of way. STJs want to structure the world around them in a way that's very efficient, so you have exactly what you need when you need it, and so you can get your goals met in the fastest possible way. And then a comment from VS. I had an ISTJ coworker who had tremendous MacGyver skills, insta plans to get things done quick. Amazing. Yes, I think the MacGyver set of skills is often applied to STPs, but I've definitely seen that STJs can have some of the same types of skills. It's like their extroverted thinking can rig up a fix fairly quickly without getting bogged down in the weeds of it. Another comment, Gregory, are you talking about philosophical reality or physical reality? And I don't know if that comment was for me or for Jack.
I think that was going back to Jack's comment.
Okay. And then John says, my wife wishes I could show, I hope you don't mind me also reading your comments here, but hopefully not. I could show my emotional side more, but I don't know what in the world my emotions are at times. And sometimes that it can feel that way for ISTJs, or well, for TJs in general, because introverted feeling is fairly low in your function stack. Often having time alone to process, like whether that's through journaling or listening to music and finding something that suddenly hits with what you're feeling, can be helpful. There can be a lot of reasons why it can be a struggle to find emotions, but generally I find that TJs, if they're not getting enough alone time to process, have a harder time being in touch with their feelings, because in the real world, when they're out doing things, they generally tend to be in that extroverted thinking mode, which is focused on productivity, accomplishment, task generation, logistics, strategy, things like that. And so when you're in that mode, it's really hard to be like, oh, how am I feeling right now? For example, if I'm in the middle of work and Daniel comes up to me and he's like, I love you, and like starts giving me a hug or something like that, my TE is kind of like, okay, this is great, but I need to get back to what I'm doing. Now, afterwards, if I'm like alone driving my car, I might be like, oh my gosh, I really love Daniel. He's so sweet. It was so nice that he did this or that. And my feelings start to come out more. But if I'm in the middle of tasks, it's like that feeling side kind of goes mute. And that sounds terrible. It's not like I cease to love Daniel or anyone else, but it's just like I'm focused on the task at hand and what I have to do and the fastest way to get there and what's my strategy going to be. And so my feelings for people, and often for a lot of TJs, their feelings for people kind of bloom when they are more alone, when they're able to get away from all the tasks that they generally have to accomplish. So I think that's actually our last slide. This has been, first of all, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in there before we say goodnight for the night. I wanted to say that if any of you would like to find out more about your type through a one-on-one session with me, feel free to go to my website and book a session with me. I'm doing type clarification sessions, or I'm doing cognitive function deep dives. If you hear us talking about the functions and you're like, what are those? I do not get it. And you would like to have a one-on-one session where I can walk you through your cognitive functions and answer any questions you have more individually, I would love to be able to talk to you about that. It's also a way you can support our Psychology Junkie site. Keeps the lights on, keeps us being able to show up here for you like that. But I want to say, more than anything, what we care about during these sessions is being able to build this type community. One thing that I used to have, there used to be this type Twitter years ago. It used to be that there were a bunch of people who were really into type on Twitter, and everyone was talking about type quite a bit, and everyone was really, there was a lot of great friendships that were formed there. And then over time, people kind of sort of grew out of type. And I always felt that was pretty sad because I really enjoyed some of the conversations that were had there. So one of the reasons and motivations for me doing this is to help rebuild that sense of community, a community of people who love type, who love talking about it, who love agreeing or disagreeing about it. I think this is an awesome way to do it. I appreciate you all having patience for me with my INTJ mind blips. Talking for extended periods of time, if you're a fellow introvert, you probably understand, can be kind of a challenge. I will be talking and my mind will literally go blank. So part of me is like, oh, I should do pre-recorded videos, but that kind of defeats the purpose of trying to actually have conversations, because I can't have conversing in a comment section. To me, is just not as satisfying as conversing in real time like we're doing now. So I appreciate your patience with me as I, am an introvert talking for over an hour. And I love that you guys are all here.
Can we look at Lightbearer had a question that would be a good.
Yes, thank you for bringing. Oh, wait.
I think we're both trying to pull it up. There you go.
Do you have thoughts on how introverted feeling misunderstands the care extroverted feeling gives? I'm an INFP and my husband is an INFJ. I feel like he's trying to be manipulative, which is the exact opposite of his intention. So yes, this is a common struggle for introverted feeling versus extroverted feeling, because extroverted feeling is constantly trying to create a sense of harmony and connection. Introverted feeling is always trying to get deeper into authenticity, whether it creates harmony or disharmony. It's like the what matters is that you're being like getting deep into the accuracy of the feeling itself. In the same way that introverted thinking is like, I don't care so much about output, I just want to understand what the truth is. Introverted feeling cares less about the mood and more about getting to the precise understanding of the emotion itself. So sometimes an introverted feeling type will be trying to explain or contemplate the complexity of an emotion they are dealing with. And an extroverted feeling type will come in and maybe try to harmonize or optimize that feeling. Like, don't be sad, everything's going to be okay, or something like that. And it can feel to the introverted feeling type like perhaps they're cheapening the experience, even though that's not necessarily what's happening. It's kind of like when an introverted thinking type is like, let me explain to you how this works. And the TE type or the TJ type is like, I don't care how it works. I just want to know that it works and I want to do the thing with it. Actually, introverted feeling is like, I really need to understand the complexity and I need to explain. If it's with a loved one and you're trying to explain your feelings, I need to explain this thoroughly so that you understand the real depth of what I'm feeling. An extroverted feeling can feel kind of like, well, yeah, but it's gonna like be okay. And that sounds INFJs are usually not those types that are like just brush over people's feelings with toxic positivity. They're generally not like that. So I'm not trying to make it seem like they are. But often there's this desire for extroverted feeling types to try to get the person in a more positive emotional state. And so sometimes that's not necessarily what an introverted feeling type is looking for. They're not really looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes they just want you to be in the tunnel with them for a while and so that they can sort it out themselves. Oftentimes introverted feeling doesn't really want help understanding their emotions. They just want you to be there with them, and not try to change how they're feeling. And sometimes extroverted feeling also, it's like they know how to read people's emotions and how to not manipulate, but how to create an emotional atmosphere. That's one of the gifts of extroverted feeling. And sometimes it can feel to an INFP or a feeling perceiver like, why are they orchestrating this mood? Why can't they just let people's moods be what they are? But that's one of those strengths of extroverted feeling, is that it's like, I know how to create this vibe or this rapport or this general mood or feeling, and that's what I'm good at. And so they're generally doing it out of a real desire to help, but it can feel like in some ways pushy to feeling perceivers, especially. So INFPs and ISFPs have what's called oppositional extroverted feeling, if you're looking at BB's 8 function model. And so oppositional extroverted feeling, it can mean that extroverted feeling can feel a little oppositional to an introverted feeling type. It's like, no, my way of feeling is the right way. It's the more nuanced, truthful, authentic way to get to how I'm feeling. So extroverted feeling, which is like, but let's focus on the mood itself, or let me empathically try to get with you or like harmonize the situation can feel, it can feel kind of like oppositional or pushy to introverted feeling at times. In the same way, an extroverted feeling type might see an INFP, they might interpret their introverted feeling as being oppositional as well. So sometimes when you have an extroverted feeling type and an introverted feeling type in a relationship with each other, sometimes their shadows can be misreading and misinterpreting each other at times. And it can definitely create some confusion because generally in a partnership, in a marriage, a lot of times both people really want to show genuine care for the other person. And then when they get misread or something like that, then and they're both misreading each other, it can just create a lot of confusion. I know there's a lot more depth I could get into that with that answer, but we could probably talk about just that for like a couple more hours and still have more to say. But I hope that helps answer it a little bit. And then let's see. Kale says, I heard from an ENFJ that emotions can feel like a live wire and they want to ground that electrical energy. That is really interesting. I like that example. I know I have a friend in ENFJ who's generally like says that they're trying to just keep, they don't really like to ruminate so much on what they see as necessarily negative emotions. They're always trying to figure out how can I make the emotional vibe of the room I'm in happy. And I found that for a lot of particularly ENFJs or EFJs, there's just like this hunger to consistently keep a harmonious atmosphere. And sometimes introverted feeling is just like this, we need to be okay with this not being harmonious because it's the truth. And that's what matters. So, and then we have another comment here from Vicky. My ENFJ husband could read my emotions, but couldn't interpret reasons behind them. Interesting. Yes. So extroverted feeling is really good at like interpreting like the mood. This mood is tense. This person's, grieving, or this person's stressed, or this person's lonely, or this person's sad. But that deeper, finding the deeper motivation, sometimes for an ENFJ would mean really tapping into introverted intuition more. Trying to look behind the scenes, see what's not immediately obvious and why. And so sometimes that happens more when an ENFJ has had a bit more alone time to kind of bring that introverted intuition to the forefront of their mind. Any thoughts, Daniel, that you have before we wrap up for the night?
I think I'm good. You've covered things so well. I don't think I have a whole lot that would be adding to it at this point.
All right. Well, listen,
it's been good.
Everyone who showed up here tonight, thank you so much for being here. It's so much fun to connect with all of you, and I'm so happy when I see some of these familiar faces. I feel like I'm getting to know each of you better, and then seeing new faces is always super exciting. And Jack, thank you for coming. I don't even know if you're still there, but adding some socionics expertise to the conversation as well. I hope that you guys will join us next Wednesday. We will be on here at the same time next Wednesday. I don't remember what topic we're talking about. We literally were like, we are going to know next week's topic when we do the stream this week, and then we don't. So
we'll shoot for that for next week. Hopefully we can tell you what it's going to be the following week.
Well, we aren't going to be doing it in 2 weeks because that's
true.
Thanksgiving-ish. But next week we'll be here. So be here at 8 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday for our next discussion. I will put out reminders about that. Thank you so much. If you have a question, but you think about it later, be sure to leave a comment on the YouTube video. Sometimes it takes me a few days to get back to those because 5 kids and everything, but I will get back to you on those. So thanks so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate all of you. Thanks for helping me build this type community. Thank you for being here, and